What's the most shocking secret you've been keeping that you're finally ready to confess anonymously? I'm a 20-year-old woman, and lately I've been dealing with increased financial responsibilities. Between bills and paying for my education, my regular 9 to 5 just hasn't been enough. I recently started working 2 jobs, but since I also go to school full-time, I'm constantly exhausted. It got to a point where I was so tired of working around the clock that I began looking into alternative ways to make ends meet. That's what led me to get on a dating app in search of a rich man. That's how I met a man we'll call Jim, who's 46. Jim is married and has children around my age. He gives me money every time we meet. And to be honest, it's a lot of money for relatively little effort on my part. We have to be discreet, of course, and I don't know much about him because he wants to remain anonymous. He claims his wife knows he cheats, but has made it clear that he doesn't plan to stop. Part of me feels guilty about what I'm doing, but it's also been financially beneficial for me. And realistically, I know I'm not the first person he's cheated with. If it weren't me, it would just be someone else, right? I've been in similar situations before, but always with single men, so it felt more like a relationship. With Jim, I'm not allowed to call his phone, know his real name, where he lives, or any important details about his life. I feel like a homewrecker, but to be honest, I'll probably continue seeing him regardless. Edit. I didn't mention this in my original post, but this guy is like a professional cheater. He made it clear from the start, when I can text him, which weekends are designated for family and which ones are for fun, along with other boundaries. It's obvious he's been doing this for a while. He's told me many stories about other women he's been with during his marriage, and he's extremely cautious. By that, I mean he makes absolutely sure I have no way to track him down or use anything against him. He's definitely very experienced in this. Story 2. I know I am a disgusting person, and this is very wrong. I have a history of taking pictures of cute girls. I'll hold my phone so it looks like I'm just resting it or doing something else innocent with it, but in actuality, I keep my camera lens pointed at the girl of interest and snap photos without anyone noticing. There are probably over a dozen girls I can think of that I have photos of saved on my computer, and they have no idea. From my personality and appearance, most people wouldn't suspect anything unusual from me. I'm a reasonably attractive man who dresses well and tries to be nice to people. To the average person, I just seem like another completely average person. This is something that I am unbelievably ashamed of, and I have never told anybody about it, except anonymously. A couple years ago, I met a girl who goes to the same college as me and also happens to be pursuing the same degree as me. I thought she was very attractive, so I decided to start taking pictures of her when I saw her in class. At the time, I never imagined she and I would ever become friends. But because we took a lot of the same classes together, same degree, we slowly started talking to each other. It turns out she and I actually have a lot in common, and I really do mean a lot. We share many of the same interests, hobbies. We have very similar personalities, lifestyles, similar sense of humor, etc. I learned very early on that she has a very serious boyfriend though, so our friendship was completely platonic. We're now at the point where I would honestly consider her to be one of my best friends, if not my very best friend. We hang out at her apartment, we text, Snapchat daily, we're doing our year-long senior project together, and we also talked each other into getting pet hamsters at the same. We've shared some very personal information with one another. She's even told me about the struggles she has dealt with in the past from depression, something very personal to her. Now, here's the sick, twisted part. Throughout the entire process of us becoming friends, and even up to this very day, I have continued to take pictures of her any chance I get so that I can use them later. While I don't view her in a romantic way at all anymore because of her boyfriend, I continue to find her unbelievably attractive. One day, when we were at her apartment, she left for less than 5 minutes to grab dinner. Restaurant is within walking distance, and she left me alone in her apartment. While she was gone, I went through her drawers and took pictures of them. Sigh. That's my story. To this day, she still has no idea, and she doesn't seem to suspect a thing. I mean, why would she? Why would one of her best friends do something so disturbing? I have no intentions of ever telling her about this. It would absolutely destroy our friendship and probably scar her for life. Just remember that even the people who look the most innocent and unassuming can have dark secrets. I should not be doing this. I'm a sick person. Story 3. I am a single 25-year-old male and moved into my apartment about a year ago, and now I am regularly meeting with my 66-year-old widow female neighbor. I met her the same day I moved in. She was very friendly, welcoming me to the apartment block with drinks and sandwiches for myself and a friend helping me move my stuff. She always said hello, and we would stop to chat in the passing. I helped her move some furniture around, and with some decorating she was attempting to do herself, then helped with some shelves, etc. Eventually she invited me over for dinner, and we ended the night in her bed. And I now regularly go through to her apartment on a Tuesday and Thursday evening where she cooks for me, and we do it before I go back to my own apartment. We have not really discussed what kind of a relationship this is, although I know neither of us have told anyone else, and she always asks about any girls I have been with recently, always looking for those juicy details. I've always had bit of thing for older women, and she is the wildest woman I have ever been with. For now, I am really enjoying life. Story 4. So it all started before my brother married his current wife. One night we were having some beers and chatting when my brother mentioned that his soon-to-be mother-in-law was getting a divorce and joked that I should go after his fiance's mom. His fiance didn't like her stepdad. She said he was a jerk, and she was fine with the idea. The next weekend, I was invited over and met her for the first time. Sparks were definitely flying. She was a total cougar and mentioned she hadn't been with anyone in over 5 years. We ended up sleeping together that night. From then on, we met up regularly for several months leading up to the wedding. Every day, she would come by my work during lunch and we'd meet up in my car. Every single day. We found places anywhere and everywhere we could. Even at the wedding reception, we managed to sneak away for a quick moment together. My brother and sister-in-law knew what we were doing and, for the most part, minded their own business. No one else knew. It all boiled over one day when her youngest son, who was 18, went to use her phone. It opened to a text message containing a rather explicit picture without any faces. He flipped out. Good thing she had my number saved under a woman's name. Eventually, my sister-in-law found out that her brother had seen a picture on their mom's phone. She flipped out too and immediately knew who it was. Although she didn't see the picture herself, she asked me to stop seeing her mom. I told her I would. Honestly, though, we haven't stopped. We've kept our secret for more than 5 years now. We've even had relations with other people. And when those relationships break down, we pick up right where we left off. I don't know what it is, but we just can't stay away from each other. At family functions, no one suspects a thing, but once we're away from that setting, we're drawn to each other, like white on rice. She comes to my house at least 3 times a week, telling her family she's meeting friends for a drink. I don't know what to do. She's funny, understanding, outgoing, adventurous, beautiful, conversational, witty, and just an all-around good person. We both know we can't date each other and that we can't let our secret out. But we can't seem to stop seeing each other, either. Story 5. My partner and I first met in college, but we didn't start dating until we were around 25 or 26. We've been together for 13 years now. Early on, we agreed that it would just be the two of us. No kids, no long-term commitments beyond our relationship. During the first few years, we were in an open relationship, but things got complicated when I became involved with one of her friends. That eventually ended the open part of our relationship, and we've been monogamous for about 10 years. Back in my 20s, not having kids or being married while having a loving partner felt ideal. Lately, though, I've started feeling like something's missing. My girlfriend is getting older, and I feel like there's nothing tying me to her in a long-term sense. We're not married, we don't have kids, and she isn't looking for either. I guess I'm starting to feel like I'm ready to move on from this phase of my life. So, with that in mind, on Thursday, after my assistant and I got back from lunch, we were riding the elevator together. She was showing me something on her phone, and there was a brief, awkward moment where she touched my hand in a way that felt intimate. I didn't say anything, and after a few seconds, we both realized the awkwardness and stood quietly until we reached our floor. The rest of the day, other than a few work calls, we didn't really talk. At the end of the day, I went down to her office because I needed to discuss something work-related. I had mostly forgotten about the earlier moment. We talked for a while, and things escalated. It was brief, and we had to be careful, but it left a strong impression on me. Friday went normally, and I was hoping we could just move on and pretend nothing had happened. I've been thinking a lot about whether or not to tell my partner, and I'm still unsure if it's best to keep it to myself. Today, my assistant came into my office and said she didn't want to just be that woman, that she wanted a relationship with me. I told her I couldn't give her an answer right away and that I needed time to think. She's a family friend, and our relationship is complicated. We've known each other a long time and occasionally flirted, but nothing had ever gone further until last week. I know I should probably say no and be honest with my partner, but part of me wonders if starting something new with her could be a fresh start. She's very mature for her age, she's serious about the future, and a relationship with her could mean marriage and children, something completely different from my current life. The situation has changed so quickly and I honestly don't know what to do. Story 6. I went on vacation to South America and did it with a police officer to avoid going to jail. I am married and haven't told my husband. I went to South America, won't say which country, just in case someone I know comes across this and figures it out. I ended up at a sort of beach party, and then the police showed up. I was with 2 friends, but I lost track of them when everything started happening. The cops arrested me, saying it was for drugs, along with a bunch of other people. I didn't really understand what specific law I was being accused of breaking, but I was terrified. Knew there were drugs at the party, and I noticed they were driving me toward a poorer area. I was scared I'd end up in a jail in the rough part of the city. I tried asking what was happening, but there was a huge language barrier, and it felt like they were ignoring me. One of the cops got let out, so it was just me and another cop. I was so scared at this point. I just flat out said I would do anything if he would just drive me home, and I was crying. Anyways, he ended up knowing more English than he let on before, and he asked what I meant by anything, and I just cried and said anything. I knew what was expected of me in that situation. He told me to calm down, and later he gave me my cell phone back and asked me to tell him where I was staying at. I felt horrible, absolutely terrible, and I rationalized it to myself over and over again that it wasn't cheating because I had to do it to not go to a terrifying prison in South America. But all of that above, that isn't the confession. The real confession is, I found him attractive. Something about the entire situation just gets... I am not sure if this is some weird hidden thing I have or something, but something about that memory just, right away, gets me going. I haven't told my husband, and I likely never will. I hope I will get over it. I told my one friend about it, and we aren't even friends anymore. It's been 5 years since then. I can't even bear the confidence to tell anyone right now. It feels so shameful. Story 7. This was 10 years ago. My wife and I were struggling badly financially. I got a new job as an assistant to a man in his 40s who was both a writer and an art dealer. It was a pretty good job. He was wealthy and needed someone to handle paperwork for his business, along with personal errands like getting him coffee or buying clothes. He mainly wanted a personal assistant after his previous one left. Most of the work was basic paperwork and running errands, but the pay wasn't great. And with a child and bills piling up, things were getting tough. The boss made a move on me, probably just testing the waters, and I rejected him. At the time, it didn't seem like a big deal. He was a flamboyant guy, and it almost seemed like a joke. He told me that if I ever changed my mind, there would be something in it for me. After 3 days, I decided to negotiate with him. I realized I didn't have enough money for rent that month and figured my wife would never find out. I told myself it would just be a one-time thing to cover the rent. I took some meds and directly asked him what he wanted to do and what he meant by something in it for me. He said he thought I was attractive. This was back when I worked out every day, though I've since gained about 50 pounds, and that he didn't want to pressure me. He also said he was mostly joking the first time. After a bit of talking back and forth, we kissed. He was being all right about it, asking if I felt comfortable and making sure it wasn't too weird. To be honest, the meds was the reason I wasn't totally weirded out by it. Eventually, it led to him blowing my flute, just straight up. I can't lie, I liked it at the time, but I felt horribly guilty when I went home. Really badly. I didn't tell my wife. Instead, I numbed the guilt with meds. My boss said he would help me out with rent, and he did. He gave me an extra $300. Fast forward about 2 weeks, and we were doing the same thing nearly every single day at the office. My next paycheck from him was more than double the usual amount. I was taking meds every day too, partly from the anxiety of keeping the secret. After about a month, my boss and I were pretty drunk, playing cards after we had done our same routine when he asked if I would ever be interested in actually doing it. He said again that there was no pressure and I didn't have to, but that he would make it worth my while. So things escalated and we were both together, alone, for hours of the day. For the 15-20 months I worked for him, we did a lot of things nearly every day. My wife never found out. My boss ended up giving me a lot of money. Part of me thinks I was one of his few real sources of happiness. He loved giving me things. He once gave me an expensive suit for free, always offered to pay for things, and would sometimes slip me a $100 bill out of nowhere. He liked to take care of me. He'd give me massages and was always concerned about my health. I think in some way, he was genuinely in love with me, but he knew I wasn't gay and that it wasn't meant to be anything more. To be honest, I was a little bit bi. There were moments when I did enjoy our experiences together. Still, he knew that most of my attraction, about 90%, was toward women. We had a strong bond, I think. Even beyond the intimate stuff, which we were doing almost every day, he felt like my best friend. We shared nearly every part of our lives with each other, and I had a strange connection with him. A connection I felt was fading with my wife. He had a small mattress where we'd lie down, and sometimes we'd just stay there talking for hours about life and everything in between. But my dependency on meds had gotten completely out of control. I never told my wife about my boss, but she eventually found out about the meds. I agreed to go to rehab and quit, though not cold turkey, since that can be dangerous. Once I stopped, I just couldn't handle working there anymore, so I quit. My boss cried when I told him. I felt awful, but I realized how much more I loved my wife than anything else, and that this couldn't go on, no matter how much money was involved. My wife never found out, and she still doesn't. She never really questioned where the money came from. She just assumed my boss was generous and that it was a well-paying job. I don't even know how to feel about that whole era of my life. I don't know how my wife would react or how my kid would react. My boss, Ken, was the reason my child could attend private school, the reason we could finally afford a car, and the reason we were able to pay off student loans. I am grateful to Ken for that, but I'm not sure how to feel about the cheating part. I became so close and vulnerable with him in ways I shouldn't have. Not that I loved him or anything, it wasn't romantic for me. Maybe it was for him, but not for me. I have a sense of regret and sometimes a strange melancholy when I think about that era of my life. I hope Ken is doing all right. I'm happier than ever with my wife and my child. We're doing well financially, and my wife and I are deeply in love. I just hope he's doing all right. Story 8. My best friend, who is a girl and the same age as me, is someone I'm insanely attracted to. She only sees me as a friend, though, since she's a lesbian and would never be in a relationship with a man. She confided in me that she had started making content online for extra money. It's not huge, but it's enough to cover her rent each month on top of her regular job. She has a full-on secret Instagram, Twitter, OF, and so on. It came as a shock, and I asked her a ton of questions about it. She briefly showed me her account while we were talking. Then she dropped the bombshell. She wanted me to help her with a video someone had paid for. Apparently, the client was tired of same content. I won't get into specifics because of the rules here, but she wouldn't do full-on video since she doesn't like men. She made it very clear that she just needed someone for the video and trusted me, but she was doing it for the money. Not because she liked me. She even offered to give me a portion of the profit if I helped her. We did the video, but I also memorized her username and, after a couple of days, subscribed to her anonymously. Since then, I've been doing the same thing, paying her anonymously for videos that involve a guy, just to make sure she keeps using me in real life. I feel guilty deceiving her, especially since she's giving some of my own money back to me. Story 9. I'm 24 and moved in with a friend who's 25 several months ago. We only knew each other through school, but we've been part of the same friend group for about 2 years. He had an opening in his apartment, and I needed to move, so I was excited about it. Overall, it's been really nice. My friend has a pretty attractive girlfriend. She's funny and really fun to be around. They make a great couple. Good for him. Our walls are fairly thin, and very occasionally, they'll get busy when I'm in my room. I can barely hear them, just a subtle sound every couple of minutes, but it gets me every time. Over the next few months, it escalated. I started researching ways to pick up sounds through walls and even tried simple tricks, holding a glass to the wall, testing different positions, until I realized in hindsight how intrusive that was. I kept telling myself it was harmless and that nobody would ever have to know, but I was fooling myself. One night, on impulse, I bought a small voice recorder, and while my friend was out, ran tests by placing it in different parts of his room to find a spot where it would go unnoticed. The idea of capturing a high-quality recording was exciting to me, and I never intended to share it. I knew it felt wrong, but at the time, I convinced myself it was harmless. I think we've all had that fleeting curiosity, wondering what people might say about us when we're not around. I had no plan to confront anyone or share what I heard. It was purely curiosity, and I was the only one involved. Finally, I got a recording one night, and I was eager to listen to it. Unfortunately, the recorder had terrible automatic noise cancellation, and the audio was heavily distorted, which only motivated me to try again. I had a few moments of clarity between attempts when I realized I was crossing a serious boundary, and that if the person found out, it could seriously damage our relationship. But mostly, I just focused on listening. The hardest part of the first recording was when I overheard a private, heartfelt conversation between him and his partner. I felt awful about listening, so I didn't play that part and instead skipped through to other sections. I tried again a while later, but once more, I didn't capture anything useful. I didn't even go through the entire 5-hour recording. The third time, though, I finally got a clear recording of a very private moment. Listening to it wasn't shocking or dramatic. It was completely ordinary. I had built it up in my head, and while I was curious in the moment, I was left feeling a mix of emptiness and guilt over what I had done. Now, I don't know what to do. Ever since that last recording, I've been hit with waves of guilt, especially when I'm having a rough day. Today was one of those days, which is why I'm trying to get this off my chest here. I keep thinking about telling him, because I feel like our friendship has suffered. I haven't been as open or vulnerable lately. It's not just about what happened. I've just felt disconnected for a while. But I know that if I told him everything, it would probably destroy our friendship, and that thought eats away at me. I don't think he'd take extreme action, but there's always that possibility, and who knows what other fallout there might be among our friend group. It feels like one of those take-it-to-the-grave secrets. Right now, no one has been hurt, and no one is any the wiser. I know I've clearly struggled with respecting personal boundaries, and I wouldn't want anyone in this situation if the roles were reversed. I'm left wondering what I should do, besides deleting the recordings and getting rid of the device, of course. Story 10. I used my charm to get out of being arrested, avoid failing classes, and to get a promotion at work, among other things. Before judging me, please know that I am not proud of any of this. I haven't engaged in this kind of behavior in over 4 years and don't plan to ever do it again. The first time I used personal charm to get out of a tough situation was back in high school. I was struggling in algebra and trigonometry during my senior year, and without passing, I wouldn't have graduated on time. That situation started when my teacher approached me. The second time, I was the one who made the offer. In college, I was completely in over my head in a certain course, but the TA was friendly with me. With the final coming up and knowing I was going to bomb it, I asked him one day if there was anything I could do for some extra credit to make sure I at least got some kind of passing grade. He did not get the hint at first, but eventually, I just flat out told him, and he accepted. I partied way too much in college. I had a fake ID and got into bars I shouldn't have, but it was an open secret at several campus bars that as long as you had any form of ID and were an attractive woman, the bouncers would pretend they believed you were 21. So, I went out a lot. One night, I tried the ID at a club I'd never been to before. The bouncer took one look, put it in his pocket, and told me to leave. I was so outraged that I demanded he give it back and let me in. I was already drunk, having come from another bar. He warned me that if I didn't calm down, he would call the cops. I thought he was bluffing. He wasn't. When the police arrived, they placed me under arrest. During the drive to the station, I offered a little time if he let me go. He agreed. As for the job, that was the worst one. I'd only been working there 6 months, but it was my dream job. I loved it. One day, out of nowhere, we were told that our office was closing and that only 20% of us would be retained and moved to new offices. Everyone who wanted to stay with the company had to reapply. Since I had basically no seniority, I knew my chances were slim. During my interview, I made it clear to the HR representative that I really wanted to keep my job. He got the hint, and I ended up having a 6-month-long affair with him, which even led to a promotion. I still work there and have been promoted twice since, but I promise those promotions were based on actual merit. For a long time, I used myself to get what I wanted. Those are just the biggest examples. I finally realized how wrong my behavior was about 4 years ago, when I was about to make a decision that would have crossed a serious line just to get something I wanted. That moment made me see how unhealthy and immoral my actions had been. I'm not proud of any of it. Yes, when I was younger, I sometimes bragged about some of it to friends, but deep down, I always knew it was wrong. That didn't stop me at the time. It wasn't until I grew up and took a hard look at myself that I finally understood just how misguided I had been. Story 11. I've been married for 23 years. About 5 or 6 years ago, my husband and I started talking about exploring new experiences together. At first, I wasn't interested, but we kept the conversation open and took our time discussing it carefully. One of my main concerns was having our only daughter out of the house, starting college. That finally happened last August when she left for her freshman year. Over the next year, we continued to talk and reflect on whether this was the right choice for us. By Columbus Day weekend, we felt ready to take that step together. A friend of ours, who I was also attracted to, joined us for this experience. We invited him over for a small dinner and drinks beforehand. At first, it was a little awkward for all of us, but over time, we relaxed and enjoyed ourselves. The evening went on until midnight, and we asked him to stay the night in our spare bedroom. That's where things got a little complicated. Over the past few months, I've been dealing with heartburn and often wake up around 3 or 4 in the morning. One night, I woke up and got some Tums, and he was awake on the couch, on his iPad. We chatted briefly, first making small talk and then talking about the evening and how much fun it had been. He mentioned that he had always been attracted to me, and we shared a kiss. At this point, it wasn't really a surprise. We had already been intimate earlier in the night. Later, we went to the guest room together. I stayed until early morning, around 6, before returning to my bedroom. My husband never found out. Honestly, I don't know if it's cheating. I'm still unsure how to label what happened. My husband saw what happened earlier and enjoyed it, but he wasn't present for this moment, so it leaves me wondering how to define it. Story 12. I dated my daughter's ex-boyfriend. He got me pregnant and I terminated it. They got back together and got married. This was back in, let me think, maybe 1997. I was 38 and my daughter was 18. She was dating, let's call him Harry, who was 24. I was an alcoholic and dabbled in other drugs. I was not a good person, let alone a good mother. Not that I was abusive, but I was generally inattentive and cared more about my alcohol and drugs than her, especially during her teen years. I am 14 years sober now. I disapproved of my daughter dating Harry, but I never told her why. He constantly flirted with me, and the age difference also creeped me out. On top of that, he was an alcoholic and drug user, just like me. She eventually broke up with him over his alcoholism. Soon after, my daughter moved away. Not too far, but she no longer lived with me. Harry kept calling and asking if we wanted to get drinks. I turned him down, but one day he offered to smoke, and I couldn't resist. He came over, and guess what? We ended up in my bed. He was very good looking. He reminded me a lot of that ridiculous 80s Justin Bieber picture that was on the front page today, which is actually what made me think about him. For the next few months, maybe 3 or 4, he would sometimes come over. Then I got pregnant. I knew it was his. I never told him, went and terminated it and kept it a secret. Anyway, I stopped seeing him after that. It was too weird. I also got sober for about 4 months before relapsing. Fast forward 2 years, and my daughter contacted me to say she had gotten back together with Harry and that he was fully sober. I was mortified. I feared he would tell her about what had happened and that she would hate me for life. They came over one day to say hi, and after my daughter left, Harry told me there was no reason to tell her. I agreed. It's been 16 years of marriage on their part. They have a child together. Harry got cancer and then beat it. I got sober. That's basically it. I don't see them very often. They live in Texas, and I live on the East Coast. But whenever I do, there is always tension between Harry and me. It's literally the first thing that comes to either of our minds. I can just tell. Tension, but more like, why did we have to do that? What the hell is wrong with us? Kind of tension. I think about it often, especially when I see my grandson. I always think that could have been my son if things had gone differently. But wow, what a disaster it would have been if I had decided to keep that child. Story 13. I have a very happy marriage, but unfortunately our intimacy has faded. I find my wife beautiful and incredibly attractive, yet she just doesn't share the same interest in intimacy. This has been difficult for me because I have a high drive. While traveling alone abroad, I had a couple of encounters. The first one didn't feel right, even though the person was attractive. The next night, I got another girl who was tall and thin and young, probably 20. I had the best time in years. This stopped when I got back home. But my marriage, while happy and romantic, still lacked intimacy. About a year and a half after my previous experiences abroad, I tried a professional massage that was more intimate than usual. It felt good, but a later visit was disappointing, and I realized I wanted more. Through a friend who works in corn and arranges bachelor parties, I gained access to people in that world who connect with others in controlled, safe settings. I was careful to approach these situations responsibly, and it offered an outlet I hadn't had before. The same pattern started to emerge. I met the first girl after work at a sleazy hotel. I had drinks and some appetizers with her while my friend set up the room. She's local, Caucasian, probably 23, and an exotic dancer. It was supposed to be a 3 score, but I'm not attracted to my friend, so I spent most of the hour giving my attention to the other girl. I could tell she trusted me, which made the experience feel more personal and meaningful. A few weeks later, I met her other friend, this Jamaican Dutch Irish girl, someone I found incredibly attractive. This time, I got a nicer room, and we spent some time chatting and relaxing together. While the encounter started intimate, I found myself more drawn to conversation. We ended up talking at length about our shared interest in Hinduism and our personal experiences. We made out for a while, and then I went home, reflecting on how meaningful the conversation had been. Honestly, I'm not looking for judgment. I just want to get this off my chest. I don't get much fulfillment from casual encounters, and I'm working on reigniting the spark in my marriage. Interestingly, these experiences have made me appreciate my wife more. While random encounters can be exciting and fun, they rarely feel meaningful or memorable. The most passionate and rewarding I've ever had was with my wife, but I think in the future, I might continue seeing the Jamaican girl. Story 14. This happened this New Year's Eve. My younger brother came to town and brought his girlfriend over to my house for a night of drinking and celebrating. This was the first time I met her. She's a pretty 19-year-old blonde, and they had been dating for a few months. He's 23, and I am 28. The 4 of us went out partying, my wife included. We all got pretty wasted and took a cab back to our house. I was ready for bed. After washing up and dealing with being sick, I passed out in my bed. I had drunk so much I could hardly function. I woke up a couple hours later at 5 a.m. spooning with my wife when I took things a little further. She woke up and responded, and I immediately knew that voice was not my wife's. I focused my eyes and saw blonde hair. My wife is brunette. It was my brother's girlfriend. I asked her what she was doing in my bed. She replied, "What does it look like?" and continued what she was doing. The worst part is I should have stopped, but the damage was done and I kept going. My head was spinning, drunk and confused and excited. I told her I can't believe this just happened, that I am married. She said, "I won't tell," and left the room to go back to the spare room where my brother was sleeping. I got up and went downstairs to find my wife sleeping on the couch. I woke her and asked why she wasn't sleeping upstairs. She said she had been, but my brother had passed out in our bed with me. She went back to bed and fell asleep. They got up around noon and left. I've been thinking about the whole situation and feel tricked. I can't believe this happened. I passed out alone and ended up with someone who wasn't my wife. I know I am to blame for not stopping, but I had never considered cheating before. Now I realize that I am weak. That is my confession. Story 15. My wife and I are in our early to mid-30s and have been doing swap stuff for about 2 years. She comes from a very conservative family, 3 kids with incredibly loving, successful, and caring parents, which is probably part of the reason she enjoys exploring so much. Both of us, as well as her siblings, live in different countries from her parents, who are now in their 60s. We usually visit them about twice a year and stay at their house when we do. We try not to play with people in our own city because our careers require us to be very discreet. So we tend to seek our experiences while traveling, including during visits to her parents' country. Needless to say, we always tread carefully to avoid being discovered. At least, that was the case until our second-to-last visit. We were on a site, and lo and behold, out of nowhere, we found a profile that was quite clearly her parents'. We had never noticed it before, as we usually filtered for ages similar to ours. Neither of us could have imagined, even in our wildest dreams, that her parents would be into this. But it seems they are. She was a bit appalled, but I have been attracted to her mother since I first met my wife. Who knows, I have a bit of a thing for older women. So, needless to say, I was pretty excited. She is very close to her mom, and after some uncertainty about whether to bring it up, she eventually did. I won't go into all the details, but there was a lot of crying, yet also some sense of relief for both of them. It turns out they used to be active, mostly in their 50s, and had kept a profile mainly for my father-in-law to browse a bit. After a few awkward dinners, without mentioning any of this again, we went home, and my wife and I started discussing it more. I made no secret of the fact that I found her mother attractive, and my amazing wife seemed very comfortable with me saying things like that. She speaks to her mom regularly, and once again, without going into all the details, it turns out her mom felt the same way about me. Needless to say, doing this with her parents as a couple is totally off the table, but my wife and her father agreed that her mom and I could consider it as a one-time thing. On our next trip to visit them, we had a super awkward meetup, said nothing for a day or two, and then it came up over dinner and drinks. Everyone was on board, and we agreed it made more sense for her mom and me to meet at a hotel. On Friday night, her mom and I were picked up by an Uber and left their family home with my wife and father-in-law there, heading to a nice 5-star hotel in the city. The plan was to have dinner first, but straight after checking in, which was a story in itself, full of funny stares, we went straight to the room. We never made it to the restaurant until we eventually left the next morning, having had brunch in bed. It was the most amazing time I have ever had. Saturday night, we were all having dinner as if nothing had happened. A few days later, we left for home, and everything was fine. Just one happy family. I love my wife endlessly, but it was also amazing to have this experience with my mother-in-law, and I genuinely feel it made me love her even more. And believe it or not, I would be more than happy if it never happened again. It was just a great bonding experience for us all. Story 16. Ever since I have had my own apartment for more than 10 years, I have compulsively listened to my neighbors. Sometimes I will stand with my head against the wall doing nothing but listening for hours a day. Nowadays, I am more likely to record it and listen later. For a long time, I just did this and felt a little embarrassed and guilty. But I didn't realize it was a real problem. I usually listened at night or in the morning, since that was when they were more likely doing, This was manageable, because I was typically home at those times. Then one day, I overheard them at 2 in the afternoon, and things got worse. Suddenly, I felt like I couldn't leave the apartment. I had to force myself to run errands. I even felt unable to leave for work in the morning, and considered calling out sick just in case I missed it during the day. Accepting social invitations became a real struggle. I have been seeing psychologists and therapists for the past few years for other issues, and I brought this up when I realized how severe it had become. Nothing has really worked to alleviate it so far. I haven't indulged in this for perhaps a month or so, because the last time I listened, I almost got caught. But I know this is temporary, and I will likely start again soon. I used to do this only in my own apartment, so while it was an invasion of privacy and a tremendous waste of time, it wasn't really dangerous. Then I moved to a new building. Each unit there has an extra door in the living room that leads to a fire escape. By going out onto the fire escape, I could listen to several different apartments, and the amount of time I spent doing it increased accordingly. Pressing my ear to those doors lets me hear almost everything, as if I were in the same room. But that also means I'm putting myself at risk. If I make too much noise, they'll know someone is out there, in the otherwise unused fire escape. There have already been a few times when I've nearly been caught. I'm not sure whether they could take legal action against me. I've spent hours at a time doing nothing but listening through the walls, completely losing track of time. Sometimes I stay in uncomfortable positions until my neck aches, straining to hear the slightest sounds from next door. It's an obsession that leaves me feeling ashamed and trapped. I don't want to keep doing it, but I can't seem to stop. I know how unsettling this behavior is, and yet part of me fears I'll never change. Story 17. I messed up pretty badly recently. There was a family gathering 2 days ago at my aunt's house, and my cousin and his girlfriend came. They're both 23, and I'm 21. They just moved to the US about a month ago and have a 3-year-old child. While at the gathering, I ended up talking with my cousin's girlfriend for a while. She asked me questions about getting a job and applying for citizenship. It almost felt like an interview with all the questions she was asking. As we talked, she smiled and played with her hair, and our conversation became a little more playful. Eventually, it was dinner time, and she sat next to me. She kept asking more questions about places to visit and whether I could introduce her to some of my friends. I started to feel a bit overwhelmed because she dominated the conversation and didn't let me get a word in. While we were eating, I accidentally coughed and spilled some orange juice on my shirt. Everyone at the table asked if I was okay. I said I had just choked on the juice. The table laughed, and my aunt joked, "I didn't know the juice I made was that good." I looked over at my cousin's girlfriend, and she giggled along with everyone else. After dinner, everyone started dancing and drinking. My cousin was already drunk, and my cousin's girlfriend wasn't. I wasn't drinking either since my parents were there and I don't like doing it in front of them. At some point, my cousin's girlfriend disappeared and I ended up talking with my aunt and parents. Suddenly, I got a text from her. "Come upstairs." My dad smirked and asked if it was my second or third girlfriend. I laughed it off and excused myself to the bathroom. Upstairs, I found her hiding playfully in a closet. I went inside. I asked if she really wants to do this. She just smiled and kissed me. I closed the closet door and we started making out. After we were done, she asked if we could date, but my mom called and asked where I was. So we quickly left the closet one by one. The gathering ended around 3 or 4 a.m. Anyway, as I said, it's been 2 days since this happened, and I'm starting to feel a lot of guilt. My cousin and I don't talk often and aren't very close. My cousin's girlfriend wants to see me again and hang out. Should I tell my cousin or keep it a secret? Story 18. This is a secret that only the man I entertain and I know. I'm 20, and for over a year I've been seeing a married man in his bed multiple times. I just want to confess because I've held it in for a while and have no one to tell. We still see each other, but I need to let this secret out to someone. I found him online while looking for a job. The nature of the gig was somewhat vague, but initially the ad said it was for a massage therapist. Long story short, I now entertain him and more. He says his wife is aware of what we do, and he's asked me several times, on her behalf, if she can watch, but I keep declining. Apparently I'm not his first. He says this whole arrangement helps him cope with stress from work. He's had others before, but I'm the only one right now. I just want to confess this to someone. Honestly, if I had known the real nature of the arrangement from the start, I would never have agreed to it. As I mentioned, it was originally posted as a massage job, but everything changed once I arrived at his place. This isn't a story or a fantasy. I have proof. I just need to get this off my chest because I can't tell anyone who actually knows me. I try to limit our encounters these days, but I can't deny that we've grown close. We've never actually done it, though he's asked me several times. Apart from that, we've done almost everything else. I guess you can ask me anything if you have questions. I just need to talk to someone about this to get it off my mind. I suppose this is my therapy. Story 19. My wife and I married in the spring of 2010, and on the surface, we have a great marriage. However, that's not really the case. My wife cheated on me a little over a year into our marriage, but we got through it. Then it happened again, and I asked her to leave our home temporarily. She moved back in with her father. She tried to contact me and work things out, but I refused to respond. One day, she texted saying she needed to come by the house to get her clothes. I finally responded, telling her I would leave her stuff outside so she could pick it up without me having to see her. She disagreed, saying that we don't live in the safest neighborhood and her things might get stolen. She suggested that her father come by to collect her clothes, and I agreed. My wife's father is openly gay. He and his wife divorced when my wife was a child because of it. Her mother left and was never heard from again. When my father-in-law came to pick up her clothes, he also asked for her laptop, which I didn't know the location of. He helped me search for it, and once we found it, he left. The next day, I got a text from him saying he needed to get the laptop's charger, so I told him he could pick it up the following day. When he came over, he seemed a little off to me. He asked how I was doing, and I told him the truth, that I was devastated and felt completely betrayed by his daughter. This was the first time I had ever openly discussed how I truly felt about everything. I broke down and started crying. Her father gave me a hug, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel so lonely. I don't consider myself gay, but for some reason, I had the urge to kiss him, and I did. He seemed surprised, but strangely, he didn't pull away. We kissed for at least half an hour. For the first time in months, I didn't feel so alone. One thing led to another, and well, things escalated. Since November 2012, we have met 7 times, and no one knows. I have genuine feelings for him, and he says he feels the same. My wife, who I am still legally married to, still lives with her father and has no idea. We haven't divorced because she refuses to sign the papers and completely ignores the topic whenever I bring it up. She tells me she wants to be with me, but I no longer feel the same. I just needed to finally rant and get this off my chest. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.